freedom. He is the Redeemer.
I wouldn't speak for the majority because, as I told you, we have not been consulted as a caucus for us to state our position. But me, Apia Kubi, you can solicit my view on that. If it was for me to choose, I would choose him. Why? He's not my preference. Apia Kubi is saying that he is not my preference. But that doesn't mean that he is not qualified. Well, if there was an opportunity like that, I would express a candidate, however acceptable or otherwise, to our presidential candidate. I would want somebody who would be open with the people on the ground, who would be able to deliver the votes, and who would also submit to the presidency, and who would also be important in bringing parliament closer to executive. I would probably select somebody who is more acceptable by the generals going to the war, the parliamentarians. We should find somebody who, if the presidential candidate is not there, he will hold the hand of a member of parliament and go and conduct campaign in that member of parliament's constituency. I don't see that happening in this equation. He cannot hold my hand. So why would I say that I prefer him?
Sabe, Mr. American. Yeah, you be the young boy. And tonight, I am sure fees. Near Shampabwa, your share school bag, your share school books. And to one take that. Say, you have not got out to go school 4 or 5 years old in the books. You are not a sada. You are progressively free at the by a panty and car. That you are not be beyond the phone before. Some are not born necessarily. Not be beyond the phone before. ATM, oh, be sorry. Now, so NDC for say, woman preferences on Pacono, or Nidia Oka. As some Oka, no tears it. No one can say, oh, Mahama see about better researches. And no one cry to miracle, we will tonight. I saw making in our war. I love one. Oh, Bia or so war, I've be a chair say. You are John Ramada Mahama Kodina, baby. I can say free researches no be tremble on farm radiation. When to know farm the memo be Angelini, you can't be sad. See, I hear for an eye, especially you say, ah, today. Nakagana, dear, me for me being quite so well than I do Moja coffee. And now we're done your damn and coffee, so we bread the hospital. And to say, Nina, then she say, a better, the baby who are quite more be a better, say. Near me who saw some say a caco, or be a fa pepe. As I knew who said pepper and the woman. And yet the other could be an idea too.
You need the hour. And to tea, I would be at tea, I couldn't need for. And son, who call a whom would do ever share politics. What a team of rubber bray, penny bray. Now, Adrina won, and one, a mistress said, Yame bois, not be a corn qualua. Would the ever bois near Pejagana mine?
The Paramount's Chief and Traditional Council.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the...
What is fully under your control, and see where you can cut this, you can postpone this, you can reprioritize, and be honest with the people of Ghana. Because of A, B, C, D, and F, we will shelve this. We will put this on the back burner. We will prioritize this because it has to do with education. It has to do with a human life, and so on and so forth. You don't.
He has labored.
Station is Pan-African Television. We're broadcasting live from the Alhaji for Dr. Kwame Nkrumah studios. And we're also live on Facebook, Pan-African Television, on YouTube, Pan-African Television. It's the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji. Like I said, live on Pan-African Television, live on the social media platforms. If you join us on the social media platform, do share your thoughts with us, what you think about the discussions we'll be having. It's a part of the show that I read what you're thinking, so I'll get there. So do share those thoughts with us if you're watching us via Facebook or via YouTube. If you're listening to us on radio, via Radio Gold or the many other affiliates that we have currently tuning to us, to give us that wider reach so that you can listen to us wherever you are and however you are moving. We want to say a big thank you to you for choosing us. I am Sena Nombo. Well, this morning we're going back to the discussion of the DDEP, particularly from the perspective of what was supposed to be done with foreign bondholders. Well, they said they have an agreement in place. Government says it has an agreement in place. And if you listen to the finance minister, he says there's a lot to celebrate. In fact, they've been able to resolve the issues in the economy to the point that the opposition cannot campaign on matters of the economy. That's how fantastically well they have done. And in fact, that day he said, watch the city. He was speaking in London. He said, watch the city the next day. There are many analysts who says, I've watched the city, I've been watching the city, nothing is happening. So that's our very first discussion. What the finance minister calls the conclusion of the DDEP and the celebrations he is calling for. And then we'll move on to issues with Kenya. Kenya has attracted a lot of attention. Some members of parliament who had gone there for a program were locked up when these things happened. The youth are protesting. First, the protest was over the finance bill 2024. The president decides to withdraw the finance bill and say, I won't sign it anymore. I'm sending it back to parliament. The youth are now saying, we can't trust you anymore. This was not what you promised. You didn't promise us more taxes. So we want you gone. That was it. So it created a whole issue. In fact, there are questions of massacres happening as a result of the protests. And I will read some of the latest development from Kenya when we get there. And I will conclude with the Great Transformation Plan. For many months, you've heard Solomon Owusu and then lawyer Pierre Dankwa refer to the Great Transformation Plan as what they believe is a solution to Ghana's economic issues. Now, they finally launched it this week. That was Monday. It was launched Monday. So we'll be discussing that plan, how they intend to get Ghana out of the situation we find ourselves. Well, this morning, we're joined in the studio by Kwame Kwesi Prajina, who is General Secretary of the Socialist Movement of Ghana. Solomon Owusu is a member of the Movement for Change, Alliance for Revolutionary Change, which is the bigger umbrella body now. And then we're also joined by the parliamentary candidate of the NDC in Wale, who is Honorable Abubakar Abdallah. Honorable Abuba is famously called. He's joining us in studio. And then we would also be joined by Mr. Kojo Chumbuafo, who is former executive director of the Free Zones Board. Well, so that's our panel for today to discuss the issues we've tabled. But we start today's program with a conversation with one of the known voices when it comes to Alhaji and Alhaji. For many, many years, they kept the show running, kept it hot, and was one of the reasons this show gained popular acclaim. Dr. Joseph Tony Edu is former Deputy Defense Minister and former Ambassador to the Netherlands for Ghana. Doc, good morning, and I hope you're well.
Good morning, Sena, and greetings to your listeners and viewers. I'll be more grateful if you can turn up your volume a bit because I can hardly hear you.
Okay. Doc, noted. Is it better now?
Yes, it's better.
Fantastic. And how's your health, by the way?
Well, come ça, but we are hanging in. Thanks for asking.
Doc has joined us to share some thoughts on the matters in relation to the DDEP and the economy and what the finance minister wants to celebrate. Doc, you know how this thing works, so you have the mic. Please go ahead.
Yeah, still your volume has gone down again. I don't understand. But I got your question. I think what I can do is to introduce an element that has been missing in the discourse on the comparative management of Ghana's economy over the years. If you observe, there is a discernible pattern that has characterized successive governments managed by the Dankwa Buzia political orientation. It starts with Buzia, went through Kufuor, and has ended up with Akufo-Addo. That pattern is borrow as much as you can, squander the money you have borrowed, declare bankruptcy, and when you get accepted as a bankrupt, you sue for debt relief. Buzia did that between 1969 and 1970, and it was the basis of his quarrel with his finance minister, J.H. Mensah. Kufuor did that with the declaration of HIPIC from 2003 to 2008. And the advantages gained by HIPIC were misused. The question we used to ask is, Nasikanoai? Akufo-Addo has done even worse. All this show that there is a clear pattern of incompetent management of Ghana's economy anytime the MPP comes to power. People have given undeserved accolade to Kufuor's management of the economy. We do know that the benefits of HIPIC was not only in the HIPIC relief, which amounted to well over 8 billion, but also in the debt cancellation which the regime achieved or was given to the regime between the period 2006 to 2007. And yet, by the time Kufuor was leaving office, our foreign debt has climbed up to its previous level again. The debt cancellation was 66% of our debt, which stood at 6.3 billion in 2006. 66% brought our debt, foreign debt, to about 2 billion. By the time Kufuor was leaving, that debt has climbed up to 8 billion again. Incredibly enough, all the so-called social intervention programs launched by Kufuor were funded by foreign donors. Virtually all. School feeding, maternal care, were all funded by donor support. Enter Akufo-Addo. The same policy of borrow, squander, declare bankruptcy, get debt relief has been pursued as the sine qua non of the management of Ghana's economy. What the finance minister said is nothing but self-glorification and self-denial of the actual facts on the ground, that they are simply incompetent. Their whole knowledge of financial management of the Ghanaian economy is to borrow, squander, get into debt, and then sue for bankruptcy and debt relief. Pattern, follow, one after the other. Katie Hammond's, this brings me to Katie Hammond's attempt And I see the relevance here in terms of the MPP's ideology of property owning democracy, development in freedom, and new capitalism. Here you are, you have declared ideologically, that you are a center-right party committed to promotion of private capital as the engine of growth. Every word that springs from your mouth like confetti in rhetorics indicate that you are the ones who are championing Ghana's development through freedom. Freedom for the private enterprise to thrive. And yet, you are full of ideational contradictions. You are full of policy contradictions. It's like a farmer who eats his eggs and expects his chicken population to grow. You are eating the eggs that lead to the generation of chicken. Here you are, you go to Parliament to seek tax forgiveness for private industries, selected private industries. And yet, you impose taxes on existing manufacturers with the effect that you kill their capacity to produce. What kind of capitalism is that? If you cannot play the capitalist game, don't play it. What business do you have to impose price restrictions? And it's very interesting that K.T. Hammond has on 2 occasions tried to pass LIs always towards the end of parliamentary sittings so that he can rush it through the mandatory 21-day sitting, and then there will be no debate. But then, I don't blame K.T. Hammond. You have to blame the whole country for restricting Ghana's development to an ideological premise that cannot advance the progress of Ghana. It is impossible for Ghana to develop with a capitalist mode of production, for God's sake. What is happening is that we are performing peripheral capitalist functions in a world dominated by core capitalist countries who sees your only ticket to participate as your possession of raw materials and natural resources which they feel they have a right to exploit. They know that you have a high fertility and high population growth, and therefore they cannot allow you to control your natural resources because your poverty is a function of their richness. They are rich because you are poor. If they allow you to exploit your natural resources, it means you'll be depriving them of their means of welfare in their metropolitan counties. That is the essence of it. And we have to realize that capitalism is by nature organically exploitative. Capitalism do not conspire to come and exploit you. You are exploited because you are exploitable. You are vulnerable. That is the essence of it. Capitalists do not conspire to exploit you, but the conspiracy element comes when their interests are threatened. In the 60s, when the group of 84 or so was formed at the UN, leading to the establishment of UNCTAD, the trend was confiscation of foreign properties and nationalization. I remember one of my own lecturers, George Schwarzenberger, called it neo-barbaric policies. I used to challenge him in class and I said, the United Nations Charter directs that we should have sovereignty over our natural resources. If we express that right in practice, is it neo-barbaric as compared to the Americans dropping napalm bombs in Vietnam and killing children? But that is the orientation, the behavior and ideological orientation of Western bourgeois economic thought. That's how it's been, and that's how it will be. So I'm not surprised that currently the MPP is jubilating because they have a relief from a partial relief from the very mess that they have created over the past 8 years. They are not concerned with national interest. They are concerned with regime interest, and they will pursue it to the detriment of the ordinary Ghanaian. That's a historical record.
Look, thank you very much. But before you go, do you have some comments on the Kenyan issue?
Well, Kenya. You remember President Marcos of the Philippines? He was also removed by people's power. Not by military, but people's power. There comes a point in the governance of every country where the underprivileged realize that they have no hope in the politicians, and they will rebel. We hope that we do not have a mass revolution on our hands, but forewarned is forearmed.
Doc, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. And we should have
always welcome.
Dr. Joseph Toniedu is former Deputy Defense Minister and Ambassador to the Netherlands. So he's kicked off the conversation on the DDEP. And of course, I guess we will go into the matter. And this morning, I'll start with Honorable Abuba on the issue of the debt restructuring program. Good morning. Nice to see you. It's been quite a while.
Thank you so much, and congratulations once again.
Thank you. Thank you.
I wish you well. Good morning to senior comrades on the platform. The butterfly is sitting next to me. We'll soon be talking about it, so I wouldn't talk much for now. Listen to the finance minister, and I felt so sad. Very, 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 very sad. One was about the economy, and one was personal. One of my problems that was personal with regards to what I heard from the finance minister was that I felt the misgovernance of this MPP government is actually leading to the destruction of some fine brains that I felt shouldn't belong to the MPP. To hear the finance minister, Dr. Amin Anta, my brother, is an individual that I've always admired. And when he was appointed the finance minister, I saw a recipe for the destruction of his character and reputation. And it played out clearly when I heard him talk after the successful deliberations on the restructuring of the debt. And the conversation this morning, if we are to understand it, we need to investigate the context and where we are coming from as a nation. This is a government in 2016 that traversed every nook and cranny of this country to attack and insult and condemn the NDC government then for excessive borrowing. So 8 years down the lane, from 2016 to 2024, after the so self-acclaimed competent individuals have taken us through their style of administration and governance, our debt, that was 122 billion, is currently now at over 568 billion. What kind of competence takes a debt of a country from 122 billion to over 600, almost 600, or more than 600 as we speak? As we speak now, it is now 658.6 billion Ghana cedis, dollars. Now, cedis. Now, the same country, the same people of this government told us in 2016 that it was a lazy approach to borrow. They've borrowed and they've taken the economy into bankruptcy. It is the same people who told us in 2016, some part of 2022, they told us they were not going to the IMF. And that Ghana was a sovereign state with pride, that there was no way under the leadership of the then finance minister that Ghana will go to the IMF. Every Ghanaian listening to me this morning will bear testimony to the fact that we have not only gone to the IMF, we were not even qualified to go to the IMF after 8 years of the administration. They told us there was not going to be haircuts. The very people who promised us there was not going to be haircuts ended up giving almost everybody a sakura, including pensioners. The pensioners who are now at home and was taking little monies from the investment they made were also denied the luxury of their investments. The same people, led by His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, traversed the whole globe with deep throat foreign accent, told everybody Ghana was beyond aid and we're moving, and our dream and vision was to get to a stage where Ghana was now beyond aid. I am bringing and cataloging these 4 important factors to dovetail into the conversation of today, where a government, after 8 years of its administration, after having failed to honor these promises they made, took us to the level where we're now bankrupt to the extent that we're no longer able to service our debt to our bilateral partners and bondholders. We defaulted in 2022. About 30 billion we were not able to pay. And in trying to go to the very IMF that we talked about not going, we realized that we're not even qualified after all to even go to borrow. So today, I hear a finance minister who tells me that when it comes to macroeconomic front, they've done far better than the NDC. Then I wonder the kind of economics this government is using in managing this economy. When Ghana was going to IMF under the NDC, under the leadership of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, we didn't have to go through debt restructuring to be able to qualify for the money we needed from IMF. Today, for only $3 billion, Ghana had to do debt restructuring, both domestic and international, in order to be able to qualify to get not anything but only $3 billion. How do you compare such situations? Then we move on to the next level where he talks about the fact that, okay, the NDC can no longer campaign on the economy. I don't think his ability to restructure debt at the international scene has something to do with the price of tomato. The Ghanaian is living under serious economic hardships. Prices of goods and services are skyrocketing. When we were in secondary school and we learned about hyperinflation, we thought it was only a hypothetical situation that will never exist. Somewhere within 2022, the inflation of Ghana went as far as to 54%, and that was hyperinflation. Currently, Ghana is one of the countries in Africa with the highest food prices. An agrarian economy like Ghana now being one of the countries where the price of food is so high. The economy will still be in this mess. And I would want to call on my brother, the finance minister, not to allow his attempt to defend this indefensible situation to mar his reputation that people have known him for. Look, this economy, as we experience today, and the celebration they are calling Ghanaians to join them, I will want to tell Ghanaians who are listening to us this morning not to accept the invitation from these people to celebrate mediocrity. Because what happened at the point of the agreement of the debt restructuring, in my view, is calling us to come and celebrate remedial performance. You ruin the economy, you push the economy into bankruptcy, we are no longer able to pay our debt, we don't even have money for internal development, we are going to IMF, and IMF is giving us very harsh conditionalities for us to meet before they give us $3 billion. And after having been able to secure a debt restructuring with our bilateral donors, which is a remedial measure to get our economy to have breathing space, you call on every Ghanaian to join you to celebrate a victory. Indeed, this is actually a celebration of mediocrity, and I don't think Ghanaians should join them in celebrating this. As to whether the money, the $360 million that they are going to get after the successful restructuring is enough to cure the economic ills of this economy, it's an obvious no. Because this government, as said by the respected Dr. Tony Edo, they are very good at squandering money. Within the 8 years of their administration, they've squandered much more money than the money they are getting from the IMF. And let me also remind listeners that debt restructuring is not the same as forgiving our debts. They are only pushing the debt Ghanaians are supposed to pay into the future in order to have breathing space. So the Ghanaian economy will continue to suffer under the bad leadership of this group of people that who are clueless as to how to manage an economy. And the finance minister, the previous finance minister, has created a very huge mess to the extent that I want to assure my brother, Dr. Amin Anta, that it is not going to be possible to get us out of this mess within a short period of time. It is a prosperity problem, and Ghanaians need to think through and offer an opportunity to other people with other ideas, and in this case I call for His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, who knows how to navigate difficulties in order to get the economy on a high speed, to come back and remedy the situation. As for the call for us to to join them in the celebration of this signing of the agreement to restructure the debt, I will want to call on Ghanaians to resist and to refuse that invitation to celebrate mediocrity.
Thank you. Thank you very much. He's the NDC parliamentary candidate for Wali Wali. Like I said, it's popularly called Honorable Abuba. Let me go through a comment. This is one comment. There's someone who, when was listening to Dr. Tony Edu on the Marcos issue, says, and his wife, Imelda Marcos, who had uncountable collection of shoes, not to talk of jewelry and the lavish lifestyle. There's Magdo who says, it is only in Ghana where your debts are postponed, then we see it as economic achievement, particularly when MPP led by the super incompetent president and vice president and flag bearer. Never again should MPP rule this country. Magdo sent that from Alhaji. That's a comment I'm reading from Facebook. Thank you for sending that message. Johnny Kuja says, to be honest with you, these people are so wicked and insensitive to the plight of Ghanaians. You have borrowed to the extent that you cannot pay, and you have pleaded with the people to give you time to pay this one too. This one too, you have to praise yourself and jubilate. Do these people? Okay. Thank you very much for that message. Mr. Usu.
Good morning, Senator. Good morning to my co-panelists and to your cherished viewers, particularly all members of the Movement for Change and Alliance for Revolutionary Change. that the sorrows of this country will be a thing of the past come 2025, when we have gotten a true leader. Where we are is lack of leadership. So now I'll begin this morning by admonishing Ghanaians that they should resist any attempt by this government and its functionaries in trying to use propaganda to whitewash the sitting incompetent president together with his unserious vice president, and for that matter, the flag bearer of the NPP. No amount of words. They must not allow people to use adjectives to whitewash incompetence. This is pure mediocrity being served to the people of this country. I watched Aminanta. You first of all ask yourself where he made this statement. I listened to him at a town hall meeting of the NPP in the UK. So the context must define your understanding of what he was doing. Who was his audience? He was speaking to NPP fanatics, NPP supporters in the UK, who most of them, I'm not sure, knows exactly what is happening in this country, because they pick their information mostly from the news portals. And depending on who is paying more and who is controlling the media narrative, you are likely to get them to follow on seriousness. Remember, it was the same UK town hall meeting that the Attorney General, Godfrey Yeboah-Dame, also went and made some bizarre statement that after his cross-examination of Jackpa or so, the evidence that had been tendered were all destroyed. So clearly they were doing politicking. And like my brother Abuba said, you see, Aminanta came across as someone who was serious before becoming the Minister of Finance. And I remember one of the shows on Pan-Africa on Mondays, I descended on him heavily. When after being given the position of a finance minister, he went straight away to Manshia and lied to the king. That Manis were sitting down there to deal with all the problems in the Ashanti region. That was when I gave up on him. I realized that he has been infested. And mind you, his position, that's the finance minister's position, was originally offered to Kwaku Kwarteng. That's what people are not knowing. So you ask yourself, why Kwaku Kwarteng will reject such a juicy position? Mind you, he has been a deputy finance minister before, so his dream would have been to be the substantive minister. But on this occasion, Kwaku Kwarteng said he preferred to serve the party in parliament rather than to accept the position of the Minister of Finance. Because he knew that with this president and his vice and the make of the new patriotic party now, there was nothing like truthfulness in their dictionary. So he was only going to be used to spew non-fat. Listen, this whole idea of domestic debt exchange program or debt exchange program, why did we get to where we are? And here, Abuba, your party will not be able to go scot-free on this matter. Ghana has been to the IMF for the 17th time. We were made to go through this debt exchange program because we wanted to take advantage of the IMF program. Is that not the case? NPP, NDC for 32 years, all that they have done was to send us to the IMF. Because we have always had an issue with our balance of payment position. So we seem not to be getting things right. Why do we have a problem with our balance of payment position? It is because as a country, we are not producing. That is the fundamental problem. We are having to import more than export. So what our leaders have been doing is that they only promise without giving us a concrete plan. That when I come, just like we are doing now, we are going into a major election. What are the politicians doing? They are promising. But what the electorates, what the Ghanaian is not asking, is that what are the plans backing the various promises you are giving to the people to be able to achieve what are you are saying? We don't ask that. We are only following, Joe boy. So when they come and they disappoint us, then we tend to be angry. We don't have to be angry because we are the same people that put these people there. What did we see? What were the probing questions? To find out whether or not, given the opportunity, they will be able to, as it were, execute all the mandate or all the promises that they are giving to you. We don't ask that. So politicians in this country get away with a lot of nonsense. Now, have you cited any of the agreements we have been told of? No. Sen, have you cited it? No. Interestingly, you have the media platforms promoting this nonsense that we have reached an agreement. What sort of agreement? You don't have any media landscape. Maybe you have asked them, and maybe they will not even give you the opportunity. I know. You are from Pan-Africa, you are from Radio Good. You don't side with government. You are not one of those that are fanatics of this government. So they won't give you the opportunity. But they have their platforms. Go across that platform. And they did this propaganda with the foreign media. You read Reuters, you read CNN, you read Bloomberg. All of them were carrying the same story. That an agreement has been reached. Mind you, whatever agreement the finance minister together with this government reaches, they are doing it on behalf of the people of this country. And as a citizen of this country, are you in the know as to whatever is contained in the agreement? It's pure propaganda. Pure propaganda to deceive the minds of the people that we have done something and that give us the mandate to continue ruling this country from 2025. That is the essence of this whole piece. Now, the finance minister made an irresponsible statement that I couldn't believe it. That he, as the finance minister, could say that. He's saying investing in government bonds is an individual investment decision. And that when you invest and there are troubles, it's your own palaver. But this is a caring government that even though you made a mistake of investing in government bond, we have thought of it or seen the need to come to your aid. Is that how a finance minister says? So now what you said, do you think for a moment that if I have money, I would make that mistake in investing in government bonds? Because then it becomes an individual risk. Growing up and learning economics, be it economics without tears or Econ 101, we have been told that government bonds are the safest pair of bonds. Safest. Any book, any literature on economics will tell you safest. Like Abuba said, hyperinflation. I learned it that at a point in time, Germany, you will be there, you are buying beer. By the time you are done, the price of beer has gone up. I never thought I would experience it during my lifetime in Ghana. It took this government, led by Nana Akufo-Addo and Bawumia, to disprove all this economic theory. That indeed government bonds are not safe. And that hyperinflation is not just theoretical, but it's something that you can experience it in your lifetime. And that's what we are going through. Then on the same occasion, you have the finance minister in the midst of this nonsense promising that between June and October, they are going to unleash 1.5 billion to those that have been affected. Why do we do this to ourselves? You have told the world that you don't have the money. In fact, when the RENA unit issue came up, what were we told? The government didn't have money to even deal with an issue of 4 million. 4 million citizens to save people on dialysis. Now we are told that we have money enough. Why do you think recently the paramedics, the lab technicians went on strike? Now I'm told a lot of labor unions are about going on strike. And government is telling them that we don't have money. All of a sudden, because of politics, because he felt he was dealing with gullible minds. In any case, Canada and Japan has told us that the most stupid supporters are MPP supporters. Maybe that one came into his mind. So he thought that he had to give them wrong info. nothing of this is going to happen. But you see, the sad aspect, you see the way we are pampering our foreign creditors. This whole domestic debt exchange program, it started when? Is it not December of 2022? That we started giving locals their haircut, which compelled the former Chief Justice. She is your auntie or sister or something. You to your family members, they have disappointed this country power. When we speak, you will come and say anything otherwise. But the president who is mismanaging the country is coming from your family. Family trait. Come and destroy everything. It took the former Chief Justice to go and pick it. If you throw out because your family is destroying this country. Akufo-Addo has people, he's from that family. Given the opportunity, will destroy. Now,
that's not fair comment.
It took the former Chief Justice to go and pick it at the Finance Ministry before they started even listening to them. When patriotic Ghanaians have responded to the call of this government, we needed money to embark on developmental projects, because that is the essence of bond. Floating of bonds is to solicit for funding from the public to embark on your developmental agenda. These people have loaned you their money. Pay me if you don't have the money. The government was rather behaving as though they were doing these bond holders a favor. And as we speak, many of them have died through this process. They have died for no cause. So if you have a finance minister and a government that felt that they needed to deal with their locals first, destroy them first before they go into the international market, then it becomes a problem. 137 billion they were able to restructure, which has affected, and this is the reason why the economy is where it is. Now, did I hear the finance minister say that everything is solved because of whatever negotiations they have done? Are you sure? Do you believe in what he said? The finance minister must not be annoying the sensibilities of the good people of this country. And what I want to tell the people of this country is that this is a government that knows that it is going to opposition. And from the signals that we are picking from the system, they could suffer the heaviest defeat in a lifetime. So the decision that they have taken is to lose with a respectable scoreline. And so some of these decisions have been taken to reduce the embarrassment. And that is all to it. It's to reduce the embarrassment so that they can go out and then, if possible, reorganize themselves and come back after Lanchamantin so that they can come and save themselves. Other than that, there is no head until Ghana has not enjoyed anything. We must even demand where they have gotten to with their agreement so that we will know whether in the midst of troubles, mind you, this is a government that takes advantage of situations that are very dire. During the height of COVID, that we were seriously in pain, what did they do? Did they not go and bring a company called Frontiers? The company itself, the name is a problem. They were fronting for these people. To come and collect $94 million, Senna, and only gave this government $6 million. We asked the health minister. He said he didn't know anything about that company. We asked the transport minister. He said he didn't know anything about it. We asked the Ghana Airport Company. They said they did not know anything about it. We asked the presidency. They also said they didn't know anything about it. So who was the one that brought these frontiers into this country to come and then do what they did to us? It was during COVID that we were told by this government that they were able to feed people with 54 million Ghana cedis. Were you fed? Were you fed? So it is a matter of urgency that we are exposed to the level of arrangements or negotiations they are doing. Either than that, These people who go and negotiate at an interest rate of 10%, I'm telling you, they'll come and give it to the people of this country at an interest rate of 20%. So that whilst in the opposition, anytime government makes payment, they will go and take their share. And this must be resisted. And we will resist it. I'll end my submission here.
Thank you very much, Solomon also. He says we need to see the details of that agreement. Well, if you just join us, the Mother of All Talk Shows, Alhaji and Alhaji. We are live on Pan-African Television. We are live from the Alhaji for Dr. Kwame Nkrumah studios of Pan-African Television. We are on Facebook, Pan-African Television, YouTube, Pan-African Television. We are live on Radio Gold, 90.5 FM. Let me come to Mr. Chumbuafo.
Yes, good morning to you. Good morning to your listeners and watchers. Good morning to my fellow panelists. Honorable Akuba, it's a pleasure meeting you for the first time. I've heard so much about you. Nice to meet you. As for my big brother and my uncle, we talk often, so it's good to be back here. As for you, sometimes the least said, the better, but I'll see you in the car park after the show. For finally recognizing that I had some relatives who were destroying this country, because if I recall, some years back, you are one of their biggest advocates, and I warned you about them. Senna, I have often told you that some of the people running this government deserve to be in a mental hospital. But you see, unfortunately, they have also stolen the mental hospital. You see? So, when the time comes where they need dormitories and tents in the mental hospital, I wonder where we will have to put them. Senna, a finance minister, that's if he is indeed the finance minister, in anything but name, tells us that we should be excited that he is gone and rescheduled our execution. Because that's what in a sense they've done. You're a condemned man. Then the head of the jail cell walks into your jail cell and tells you, hey, be happy. We've rescheduled your execution. That makes us really happy. Because rescheduling the debt is basically kicking the can down the road for posterity to pay. Right? Rescheduling that debt is like Pontius Pilate washing his hands. But even worse is that the finance minister told us that we should understand that if we invest in government bonds, it's our own decision. Hey, Masa, what about Amana? What is the finance lexicon for government bonds? It is called a risk-free rate bond. The risk-free rate assumes that you can rely on government paper. The government issues the paper, and after they default, we are told by the finance minister that it's your own doing. So why is there a law in this country that mandates that when you are paid, the money must go to a bank? Do you remember that during the old days, you are paid your cash at the accounts office, and if you decide to put it under your bed, that's your business. Now, the law mandates that you are paid by electronic transfer into a bank account. Why do we have that law, Mr. Finance Minister? And instead of offering us an unqualified apology for the dross that you people have instituted in this country over the last 8 years, you go and sit in London at a so-called fundraiser where you claim that you made 1.2 million pounds. The people who were sitting there, how could they have contributed 1 million pounds, 1.2 million pounds? Another money laundering operation, right? And then when you finish, you talk to us from abroad. Yeah, that's it. On December 7, we will talk to you from here. And make sure that there isn't even 4 big pens missing in that office. Because you will account for every single thing. And don't come and tell us that you've only been there for a short time. Don't try to use any back channels to get to President Mahama or anybody else that you didn't know about what was going on. Because like my brother who I would like to meet in the car park after this show said, Kweku Party refused the post. A lot of people don't know that. So it's not everybody in the MPP who is unprincipled. Kweku Party absolutely refused to get involved with this rubbish. Because Kweku Party didn't want to have to carry Kenuforiata to spring meetings at World Bank when he was supposed to have been sacked, wearing his white, still reading his Bible verses when he's put us where he's put us. During the so-called banking crisis, whatever it is that they called it, you spent 25 billion cedis to solve a 9 billion cedi problem. There were banks that were owed money by contractors the government hadn't paid, and you closed it down for insolvency. Who does that? I mean, unfortunately, one of them was Kwesi Ndum's bank. But for Kwesi Ndum, it's good for him. Because he was the one tweeting prior to 2016 that President Mahama must go. So President Mahama went. There's an old Chinese saying, be careful what you wish for, because you may just get it. You got what you wish for. Now you see the rate at which his gray hair is grown. You see the rate at which his hair is falling out. You got what you wish for, Kwesi Ndum. Next time, be good to your creditors because they know who you are. The NDC gave you your banking license, right? But you ran around, President Mahama was go. The NDC brought you to this country. Be good to your creditors. They know who you are. Now, you are complaining you want your license back. So what? The MPP won't give you your license back. And then you pray on a future NDC government to give you your license. They will give your license to me to give to you.
Why you don't want to give to him?
Huh?
You don't give to him.
He begged, he prayed. You know his tweets.
Yes.
Mahama must go. And Mahama went.
Hey, Mahama is back. You will give it to him.
They will give his license to me. You see, my brother, a lot of people have suffered. And the finance minister was glibly saying, oh, we know some people have died. Hell yes, some people have died. There are some people who can't pay for medication, they are ill. People have spent 35 years working and saving. Their savings are gone. And you glibly just say, oh, people have died. Some of the people whose emoluments from their pensions you've rescheduled, you said they should come back and start collecting the money at the same rate of interest when they are 78. But the life expectancy of a Ghanaian man is 62. The life expectancy of a Ghanaian woman is 67. So none of the men or women will meet the money. In theory. Because at any rate, at a certain age, many of us, as people of Negroid origin, will start developing certain diseases. It's fact, it's in our genotype. If you don't have money to buy the medication, for hypertension, for cholesterol, for diabetes, and all those associated diseases, which are not just lifestyle diseases, they are diseases of genotype and phenotype. How are you going to live to go and collect the money that Ken Ofori-Atta has squandered? And yet, NPP ministers today are the biggest real estate developers in this country. You know why? Because the money they've stolen, they can't take it abroad anymore. So, they are, we say in P, or almost Daniel, they are using it to build humongous estates. Go around all the prestigious areas in Accra. It's not uncommon to see that somebody's house has been bought, is broken, and an 8-story building is coming up. Ask who owns it. And they are using shell companies, third-party companies. I mean, what government steals land belonging to mental patients? You see, Honorable, hopefully you get to Parliament. Sure. And you people need to ask questions. Which group of people take land belonging to children? They've stolen children's park. Esses and other children's park, they've stolen it. Which group of people take land belonging to a place that has been mandated since 1950 to cultivate flora and fauna that is rare orchids, parks and gardens? They've stolen it. And then they steal mental hospital. About them for assassin, Maria. What does that say about you? What does that say about a person who goes foraging to steal from people who have mental challenges? The colonialists, who we can say had really no interest in this our country, for whom we said we wanted self-government, knew that there were areas in the city that needed to be green no matter what. They knew that you had to allot places for children to play. They knew that society had a place for places like Boston Institute, Correctional Institute, within a city where underage offenders could be brought back into the mainstream. NPP have stolen Boston Institute. They have stolen the children's park. They have stolen mental hospital. And today, it is not uncommon for them to sell the car park of schools. There's a certain school in Accra. I won't mention the name. They have emasculated part of their car park. And somebody is developing office buildings in the car park. The school is a cantonment. Those who know the school know what the school I'm talking about. So, when, at what level do we say that enough is enough? Do the MPP want to see what happened in Kenya for them to sit up? Do the MPP want to see what happened in Burkina Faso for them to sit up? Or do they want to go further? For them to realize that there's a point at which we need to withdraw and say, thus far, no further. President Rawlings ran this country for 19 years. He actually made A.C. Sutherland Abbey Park better, put more toys, more swings, grew more grass there, and gave it a name. The NPP came to power. They are stealing it. And you know what they do? They say, in the name of public-private partnership. Right? As we speak now, the prisons land at cantonments. That one too, the people have been told to move because we've given it to a private. So when does it stop? And unless people begin to stand up and say enough, like the people at Parks and Gardens have said, we are not moving. Like the prisons officers have said, we are not moving. You are not selling Buster Institute. No matter what you do, we are going to die here with you. You put up the wall, we break it. It doesn't matter how many national security operatives you bring, because we ourselves are national security operatives by definition. Unless people stand up, like the people of CSIR stood up and said, you are not selling our land. That is the land opposite the Wyatt place in Roman Ridge. CSIR, they said, no, you are not selling it. Unless people begin to act, this is what we want. But Dr. Mohammed Amin will come and tell us this utter rubbish, right? Complete bull crap about the economy, that your economy is going to perform. An economy whose debt to GDP ratio now sits at 86.4% and is projected to hit 95% by the end of this year. You sit in London and you tell us this crap and rubbish because you think we are all idiots. You are a token. You have been a team for sale, Maya, or my baby foul, ceremony, and made you a token. Are you serious? Senna, an unspoken part of what happened to people's finances during this, whatever it is that they call it. I don't call it DDEP. I call it death and destruction. Many of the people who had treasury bills, at the time the CD was tanking, wanted the treasury bills, Kenneth Foretta gave an instruction that nobody should be paid. So the people were not paid. And the banks did arbitrage on people's treasury bills. So when the CD tanked and they finally got it, they had lost value. For some, as much as they recovered as in nominal value, and if you understand what I'm saying, nominal value, some recovered only 25%. And you sit there, you tell us the economy is going to get better. And who's watch? Because you people go to sit on a board meeting, one board meeting at commercial bank, you collect $34,000. Right? So clearly the economy is good for you. But not for the rest of us, who have saved our money over time. I mean, when you are young, what are you taught by your parents? When you say for BCA, we only found out under this Atim gang that your bank account is not safe. What they have done is going to undermine confidence in the banking system beyond our lifetime as we sit here. Because I am telling you, as we speak, whether you are a Fifanto, whether you are a Jinamwa, whatever it is you are, you and I both know that if you get money, you are not going to go and put it in the bank today. The best place to keep your savings is under your bed. You know that. Even my uncle Kwesi, who is a patriot, will agree with me that when you get money, the best place to put it, at least under this government, is not in the bank. Because tomorrow morning, they can tell you something else. This government is the only government in the history of this country that has declared bankruptcy, insolvency period. It is the only government in the history of this country that has expropriated people's money. And expropriation is expressly forbidden in our constitution. But they've done it. Because they can't do anything. This government is the only government in the history of this country that can willy-nilly do anything, defend it, and when they finish, the moral society is quiet. The last time we heard Madam, what's her name? The former head of the GJA. Let me sit well. This is the same one. Remember prior to 2016, when she goes to pray at Aglo, she said the devils running this country should go. 2 weeks ago, she said we have doomed so bad people are getting married. Basana, you got married not too long ago. When you get married and there's doom, so isn't it better for you? Considering you are going on honeymoon. You need electricity during your honeymoon. Don't laugh. She said there's hardship, but we are smiling. This same woman's financial institution was closed down by this very government. Unity. It belongs to her and her husband. They closed it down. But you know why she can't talk? She's a lawyer. Lawyers call it prior bad acts. Nano. So she can't talk. Why is it that Reverend Otabel cannot talk? His bank has been taken from him. Right? This is the same man who boldly predicted or prophesied that the cedi will hit 10 cedis under President Mahama. That governing a country wasn't that hard. When his bank was taken, and the managing director of the bank was put in jail, was put on trial because he's now in jail, they said now you stop talking about politics. He's watching animals. He's watching the lions of Etosha Park on Discovery. That's what he watches. You see, in my narrative in the beginning, I talked about an old Chinese proverb: be careful what you wish for. They have gotten it. And because they have gotten it, they can't talk. Do you remember my former moderator, Anyansafo? Now he said he doesn't talk about politics anymore. This is the same person who saw that he was brought brown paper with money in it that he refused to. But he still realized that there were dollars in the brown paper bag. So, unless my former moderator has X-ray vision or these days MRI vision, how could you tell that there were dollars in the brown paper, that it wasn't a see-through polythene bag? You see, they're all quiet. They're all quiet. Did you hear the Peace Council? The Peace Council supports the EC, right, to engage in ex-ante rigging. Peace Council supports the Electoral Commission and the NPP apparatchiks to engage in ex-ante rigging. Senna, there's a malaise in this country. There's a malaise in this country. And it needs to be corrected. And if God gives the NDC power in 2024, the people of this country are going to expect that that correction happens. And I want to encourage my friends in the NDC and my brothers, my comrades, that the time for father or for all is past. The people of this country want justice. The people of this country want you to find and punish the government officials who have stolen their land, who have sold their land to developers, who have disenfranchised them, stolen their pensions, and made them destitute. Eti katasumu mwasubia will not be tolerated. Sana, how many of us around this table do not know somebody who has died in an accident on the Accra Kumasi road? We don't have a motorable road between our two major cities in this country. And yet we found $250 million to host all Africa Games. We have found $250 million to build a new Bank of Ghana. And if there are any group of people who should be working in a tent during Hamatan, it is Bank of Ghana officials. Because they have printed $86 billion illegally against the very Public Financial Management Act for which they were part and contributed to promulgating. Because we are, somebody should correct me, but we're only allowed 5% deficit financing, isn't it? And they have printed it is on the orders of Kenufuyata. We have found money to put up a $10 million residence for the governor of the Bank of Ghana. When teachers haven't been paid, doctors are asking for better conditions. Nurses are leaving this country in droves, like basically like what do you call it? Like a mosquito going to his in-laws' funeral. Right? Other nations, the most xenophobic of all nations, are poaching our health officials with alacrity because of the quality of the training that they've been given. Right? And what we have done is we are allowing it to go on. We hosted and spent $250 million on all Africa Games. And what kind of medals were we winning? Arm wrestling. Right? So we were winning arm wrestling gold medals. $250 million to win arm wrestling. That is what we did. When we could have spent the money building more hospitals. We spent $58 million on that hole. That black hole, that cavern, that monstrous carbuncle that we have left in the middle of Accra. $58 million. Those $58 million, you couldn't have tarred our road. And yet, I tell you what, last year, we borrowed $70 million from the Brazilian government to tar roads in Accra. You can go and ask the DUR. So, Senna, what is wrong with us? And then you have a finance minister, that talking, who comes to tell us that we should be happy that he has rescheduled our execution. In the coming months and days and months, you are going to hear that Timothy has chosen Matthew. Right? Timothy. Well, I said we are hearing that Timothy has chosen Matthew.
He dare not do anything otherwise.
So, Timothy and Matthew, the disciples of deception, arrogance, and failure, between the two of them, Baumia has failed at finance and economics. Right? Matthew, aka Napo, has failed at education and energy. So we have the pillars of failure. Right? And if they manage to steal the election like they are planning to, the EC is planning to steal the election for them, can you imagine what is going to happen? Graduates of a failed system of government now running the government. It's just like the lunatics running the asylum. But in this case, they have stolen mental hospitals. So where do we house them? This country is on a precipice. Senna, we need to be very, 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 very careful, because this country, and there are people around this table who are more steeped in the history of this country than I am, people have been shot for nothing. Given what we have done in this country to the present time, what did we shoot Achampo and Ekufu for? What did we shoot the Nakote for? All the people who have lost their lives. And I think this week, Max 45 years since those generals were executed. What did we kill them for? Don't we owe their families an apology? That some of them were shot for borrowing 50,000? Given what we are going through in this country, what will we do to those officials? Our pensions are gone. Our lifestyle. I mean, 3 tomatoes selling for 20 cedis. 3 tomatoes selling for 20, both float, 2 cedis. Kenke, 5 cedis. And the kenke, if you people have noticed, it's yellow corn. The people who bring us the yellow corn, do you know what they do with yellow corn? They feed it to poultry. They feed Adani poultry in Google. Senator.
Engineer Chumbwa for number 2. That's Kojo Chumbwa for. Let me do a few of your comments. If you just join us, the discussion is the discussion on restructuring the Ghanaian debt. This is Tijani Osman who says, good morning. Ghana must change its laws on anyone who wants to be part of government. Both members of parliament and ministers and all government appointees should follow these new laws. Their children shall school in Ghana. 2, no one should go out of Ghana for medical reasons. Like that, when you go to parliament, they will do the right thing by making our schools better and hospitals too. Francis Godwin is also joining us. God help our ancestral homeland Ghana to have good leaders that will steer the affairs of the nation and save the future generations to come. We pray that for leaders. We pray for leaders who want to steer by force. Okay, will not get it, but we will protect our dignity and pride for the alien economy to be safe. So help us, God, to get rid of these bad leaders. Bedu Kwame says, in fact, if we're going to allow these crooked, I said, gangsters to go score free, I myself, okay. Thank you very much for the message. This one, Tijana Osman, I'm really proud of Kenyans, Ghanaians, wake up. This is Francis Otu, who is joining us. It's sad to hear all these things happening in Ghana, but some of us still, our future ahead of us. We can't risk our lives for any further demo. It's either you stay quiet or leave the country. Francis Otu sent that one. Senior Sly is also joining us. Ghanaians are fed up with the ruling MPP government. Change is coming to NDC more truthful than MPP. Ghana's economy has passed the worst phase. The most dangerous lies are those who think they are telling the truth. Don't trust someone who lies to you. Reject Baumia and kick MPP out. That is, thank you for that comment. There are a few more I'll go through, but after listening to Comrade Kwesi Pratt Jr., his thoughts to conclude this discussion on the DDEP and what the finance minister says a conclusion to our debt restructuring arrangement.
Well, I mean, nothing should surprise us anymore. You understand? Because what is happening under normal circumstances ought to be a big surprise. But after 8 years of enduring this government, what can surprise you? There's nothing that can surprise you anymore. Now, I listened to the finance minister in a celebratory mood and actually making the claim that after these achievements, the new patriotic party is now unassailable, and that its main opponent, the National Democratic Congress, has nothing to say. That virtually saying that they've won this election already because of what he claims to be the achievements of the government. What is the achievement? You are heavily indebted, so heavily indebted that you don't have the capacity to repay. Those who gave you the loans want something back. They have two options under these circumstances. Either to lose everything or to claw back whatever they can get. This is the options that our creditors have today. To lose everything or to find ways of clawing back some of what they have given us. So they enter into an agreement with you and say, look, you owe us so much. We know you cannot pay. You don't have the capacity to pay. Okay. So, as a goodwill measure, some of what you owe is forgiven. Listen to me carefully. Some of what you owe is forgiven. You are going to have to pay the rest. Huh? And how you're going to pay it is that deny your people employment. So monies or resources which have gone into paying salaries and so on, don't spend it on salary. Don't give your people employment. Keep it aside so you can pay us. You understand? Increase taxation. Increase the level of taxes so you can accumulate some resources to pay us. Increase tariffs on electricity, on water, and so on, in order to accumulate some resources to pay us. Let your people suffer more by increasing the price of petroleum products in order to accumulate some resources to pay us. Not for you to develop, not for you to build roads, not for you to build gadgets and so on, but just to enable you to raise resources to pay us so we can get something back. My brother, this is what we are celebrating. This is what we are celebrating. And we should not forget that what people celebrate actually reveals who they are. And if our government is celebrating this, it tells us very clearly who and who we have put in government. You know, I'm so troubled. I'm so very deeply troubled. Because if you watch our history, we have gone to the IMF for bailouts 17 times. And every time we have gone to the IMF, things have gotten worse. Check the history. Okay? And yet, we keep going to the IMF all the time and hoping that something new would come out of these negotiations. Indeed, our leaders have forgotten the advice which was given by Einstein. Einstein's advice is that, look, if you keep doing the same thing all the time and you expect a different outcome, your head must be examined. This is the advice that Einstein gave a long time ago. And we keep doing the same thing all the time and expect a different outcome. Our leaders, according to Einstein, not me, need to have their heads examined. It's unbelievable what we are doing. Now you see, in 2001, the whole world went into flames. Why? Because at the time, developing countries, including Ghana, were spending 67% of their total export earnings on debt servicing. And there was a crisis, global crisis. It is that global crisis which went to the development of the concept of HIPIC. 67% of total export earnings, and the world was in crisis. Now look at Ghana's situation today. Today, we are spending 128% of total national revenue, not export revenue. Total national revenue, 128%. Debt servicing, debt repayment, and public sector emoluments. I mean, this situation is far worse than the situation we were in 2001. Okay? Now, in 2001, what happened? We were given debt relief, in fact, debt cancellation, not relief, debt cancellation. We were given concessionary loans and so on. I mean, so much. After we had climbed the mountains and declared from the mountaintop that we were highly indebted and poor, that we were in a state of hopelessness. We are in 2024. 23 years later, we are in a worse crisis than we were in 2001. Again, confirming that the IMF and the World Bank recourse to the neoliberal economic path does not resolve any crisis, but only deepens the crisis. Now, what surprises me? What surprises me? I've already said that nothing should surprise us. And I'm saying that what surprises me, because even within that sphere of no surprises, there are some things that are shocking. You understand? Now, what shocks me is that our leaders perhaps are so daft that when they are told, when those responsible for underdevelopment tell them that, look, there's no salvation for you, they are so daft that they can't hear, they can't listen, they can't understand. Because I was in this country, we were all in this country in 2001. When the representatives of the World Bank and the IMF in Ghana wrote a letter, a formal letter to President Kufuor, telling him that their star people, Jerry Rawlings and the National Democratic Congress had destroyed the Ghanaian economy beyond redemption. You remember? They wrote the letter to President Kufuor. Now, 2009, after 8 years of President Kufuor's administration, the same people wrote the same letter to President Mills, telling him that the Kufuor administration had destroyed the economy beyond redemption. Now, these were the same institutions praising Jerry Rawlings to the high heavens, calling on other African countries to emulate the example of the Rawlings administration. These were the same institutions praising President Kufuor to the high heavens and calling on other African leaders to emulate his example. Now, I would have thought that our leaders would have learned some lessons. Some lessons from what representatives of these two institutions were saying. They learned nothing. Nothing happened to them. They are doing the same things that wrecked the national economy. And it's unbelievable. Now, in a few months' time, in 5 months, we'll be going for an election. And listen to me very carefully. All of these politicians are coming to us promising heaven, as they always do. You elect us, and we will do this, we will do that, and so on. They are really promising us heaven on earth. As soon as you vote for them, you cast your ballot, they quickly run to the IMF and the World Bank. The IMF and the World Bank now decide what it is that they can do and what is it that they cannot do. And indeed, invariably, the IMF and the World Bank tell them not to follow the promises that they made to the people, not to listen to the people who elected them. So what do we do? Elections, what does it really mean when we talk about elections in Ghana? Elections in Ghana is not about choices. It's not about choosing between parties and choosing between presidential candidates. Elections in Ghana have become a means of choosing new faces that will represent the IMF and the World Bank. Because whoever you elect, they will go back to the IMF and the World Bank. IMF and the World Bank will become the governors of our country. So why do we pretend ourselves that we have choices in elections? Why don't we simply elect the IMF and the World Bank and forget all these campaigns, noise making and so on? Because invariably, whoever you elect ends up with the World Bank and the IMF. And the World Bank and the IMF will tell them what to do, in spite of the promises they made, in spite of your expectations and so on. So that is the value of elections in Ghana and elsewhere in the new colonies. We are electing what faces should represent the World Bank and the IMF. Finish. Now, there's something else which is interesting. A few days, maybe weeks, before we announced that we are going to the IMF for the bailout, everybody and anybody who mattered in government told us that it was reckless to go to the IMF. You remember? I remember the finance minister making a clear statement that we will not go to the IMF today or tomorrow. Over our dead bodies, we won't go there. It will be a disaster to go there. At that time, the current finance minister was a minister of state at the finance ministry. I recall the late deputy minister of finance, what is his name? Saying that, how can we go to the IMF? We would never go, and so on. They have gone. They have not just gone, they are telling us that we should renew their mandate because they have done what they themselves told us is abominable. Can you believe it? They told us that it's abominable to go to the IMF. It doesn't resolve any problem. It's a disaster. They went, now they come back to us and say, we have done what we said is abominable. Please clap for us. Let us celebrate together. Maybe Einstein was right. Maybe, just maybe, Einstein was right. Our leaders need to have their heads properly examined if this is their behavior. Now, my brother, why are we where we are today? And it's unfortunate there's a quotation which would have fitted properly into this discussion. It's a quotation which is captured in a book authored by Dr. Don Atta, which will be launched on Monday. And I have the book.
The book will be launched
on Monday. Yes, I have the book. I have a copy of the book. Yes. No, because I'm doing the launching. No, I'm doing the launching of the book. I'm doing the launching of the book.
Okay.
So I had the privilege of getting the first copy so I can read it and you know, do the launching. And there's a portion that I would have liked to quote, but I don't have the book with me now. Now, listen, my brother. You know, Lord Lugard, in our history, Lord Lugard was a colonial governor. And indeed, he's wrongly credited for being the initiator of the indirect rule, which became British policy and so on. As a matter of fact, it was his wife, who was a journalist, who put together those ideas about indirect rule and so on. And Lord Lugard actually wrote, that a time will come when the Africans will kick us out, and that their duty as the colonialists was to make sure that when they leave, they would hand over to the elite and chiefs of Africa, the elite and chiefs of Africa, who will be made to believe that they, the British, are the best white people and that we are safe doing business with them, so that they can continue to maintain their stranglehold on the former colonies. This is Lord Lugard. Lord Lugard saw that we will gain independence. He had no doubt that at some point there would be resistance against colonial rule. But he knew that British interests could be safeguarded if they handed over to the elite and chiefs of Africa, who would believe that they had good partners in the colonialists, and therefore would maintain the colonial order in a new guise. What is happening today? This is a manifestation of Lord Lugard's thoughts. Clear manifestation of Lord Lugard's thoughts. You understand? And it's a clear evidence that indeed the British have succeeded. They didn't succeed initially because they were compelled by the masses of Ghana and Africa to hand over to leaders like Kwame Nkrumah, to Patrice Lumumba, to Sekou Touré, and so on, which were not the elite of Africa, steeped in the belief that the colonial ways were the best. So what did they do? They came back and they killed them one by one. They assassinated Lumumba, removed his front teeth as souvenir, and dissolved his body in acid. They overthrew Kwame Nkrumah in a bloody coup d'etat in February 1966, and a few years later, he died under suspicious circumstances of cancer and so on. Trace the history. They executed America Cabral and so on. In order for the opponents of Nkrumah to assume power and to mess us up big time as they're doing today. So what is happening today is a clear manifestation of the dreams of the colonial power, of the dreams of Lord Lugard and so on. That's where we are today. Now, it is important to understand that the national liberation movement throughout Africa had clear objectives, and I've said this so many times, you understand, clear objectives. The first objective was that we as African people, as colonized people, ought to be able, one, to choose our own path of development, to elect our own leaders, to own our resources, exploit these resources for our own benefit, and tear down the colonial boundaries which have nothing to do with us, and build the United States of Africa under the banner of socialism. That was the dream of the independence movement. The goal of the independence movement, these were the goals of the independence movement. What is happening today is the direct opposite of what Sergeant Ajete lost his life for, what Corporal Atipo lost his life for, what Kwame Nkrumah went to prison for, what Lumumba was killed for, what Cabral was killed for, and why the 1966 coup took place. You understand? Clear. What are we doing? We are building these states as the periphery of the world capitalist system, or the periphery of the world capitalist system. So, what we describe as our path to economic development only helps to fill the pockets of the giant corporations in the colonial metropolis. And the analysis that Dr. Toniedu did today was perfect. Who are those going to benefit from this arrangement that we are supposed to be applauding? One, those who gave us the loans, which have become unpayable now. We are creating the conditions to make the loans that they gave us payable now. Okay? So they will be beneficiaries. Those who brokered the deals, the go-betweens, as for them, they have collected their percentages already, they are gone. Whether you can pay or not pay, the transaction advisors and so on, they've made their money, cool, they are gone. Who are the losers? The losers are the Ghanaian people who today, in a period of 7 years, have to pay 5 cedis instead of 50 pesos for kenke. They are the losers. You understand? Now, there's something which just simply beats my imagination. For those of us who didn't go to the kinds of schools that you people went to, okay?
Today it's my family people, and then my school people. That is true, you're right. It's my family and my school.
So you see why you are deeply involved in what there is.
My family and my school. Yeah, you're right, you're right.
Those of us who didn't go to those schools, like Oxford, like Harvard, like Yale, and so on, we can only remember what we were taught sometimes in secondary school. And in secondary school, commerce class, commerce, not even economics, commerce, secondary school, we were told that inflation is the rate at which prices rise or fall. Alright? Secondary school definition of inflation. So let's apply the secondary school definition of inflation. Forget your Yale and your Oxford and so on. They may be far more sophisticated. We are in a situation where petroleum prices have risen by over 100%. We are in a situation where kenke prices have risen by about 1,000%. You understand? We are in a situation where we are buying, how do you call it? My English sometimes is not sufficient. No. Tomatoes like this. Is it a ball of tomatoes or what? One single lege tomatoes is 10 cedis. Couple of months ago, I went to the market and bought one lege okro for 10 cedis. And we are being told that inflation is dropping. Did my secondary school commerce lecture deceive me? Was the definition provided by my secondary school education of inflation being the rate at which prices rise or fall a deceit? How? Prices are rising astronomically. They are not just rising, they are rising astronomically. And our leaders say that, look, we should clap for them because the rate of inflation is falling. How is the rate of inflation falling when prices are rising astronomically? I can't understand. Somebody must explain to me what inflation then is or is not. You understand? And then they come up with useless statistical averages. And I mean absolutely useless statistical averages. They tell you about the gross domestic product. And they tell you about per capita income, debt to GDP, and so on. Useless statistical averages. You see, when they tell you that per capita income has risen in a certain year, you can find out sometimes that the reality is that the vast majority of people in a certain society, their incomes have gone down. A minute 1% have had their incomes quadrupling or tripling. Because the statistical average, what they do is that those whose incomes have quadrupled and tripled, they add their incomes to those whose incomes have dwindled by 50%, by 60%, and so on, put it all together and divide it by the whole. And that gives them that statistical average that they throw at us. Useless, doesn't tell us anything. Doesn't tell us whose income is rising and whose income is falling. You understand what I'm saying? And then sometimes I just wonder. They come to us throwing things at us, especially their useless degrees and so on, throwing them at us. And I ask, how do these people come to acquire these laurels, if they are laurels, these degrees, if they are worth anything? How do they come to acquire it? Sana, who knows the effect of petroleum price increases better than the trotro driver and the taxi driver? How many PhDs does the trotro driver have? How many PhDs does the taxi driver have? And yet, they really understand the full impact of petroleum price increases. When these overvalued, useless academics and so on are preparing their thesis for their award of doctors, what do? They go to the villages, talk to the cocoa farmers, those engaged in the production of cocoa, put their stories together in a format which academia ourselves presented, and they get PhDs. They and the farmer who understands the cocoa industry better. They and the farmers who understand the cocoa industry better. So the time has come for us to wake up, to face reality, than to be chasing these useless phantoms which tell us nothing. Now, why are we here? Why are we here? Let's take gold production. And who am I in the gold industry? Who am I? But I listen to the biggest, the most influential and so on. And one of the people I like to listen when it comes to the gold industry is Sir Sam Jonah. Not long ago, Dr. Sir Sam Jonah gave a lecture in which he told us in the face that Ghanaian interest in gold mining is less than 1%. Now, if you are Africa's leading producer of gold, and your total indigenous interest in the industry is less than 1%, where are you going? Where are you going? How did we get here? We sold our interest in gold mining in order to generate resources for consumption for a very short period, and that is why we are here. Under former President Kufuor, we used to have a golden share in Anglo Gold Ashanti. That golden share enabled us to make the final decisions on all major transactions. The golden share. If you had the golden share, the shareholders could not decide anything without reference to. We sold the golden share. We sold the golden share for peanuts so that we could balance the budget. And then we deceived ourselves that the shares were being floated on some what do they call them?
Stock exchange.
Stock exchanges and so on, and the Ghanaians would buy. Check from the Ghanaians who bought stocks on the stock exchange. All of them have lost their money. So, Ghana is the leading producer of gold in Africa, and yet we benefit almost nothing from gold exploitation. That is why we are here. Look, for a long time, Ghana used to be the leading producer of cocoa in the world. We came to second position. So we have been moving from first to second to third, back to second, and so on. We've never gone beyond third, the third largest producers of cocoa in the world. What is happening to the cocoa industry today? Every year, we go abroad and borrow dollars in huge amounts, and we use the dollars, we say we use the dollars to purchase cocoa. Which cocoa farmer is paid in dollars? Which cocoa farmer in this country is paid in dollars? We pay them in cedis. You understand? Now, because we borrow these huge amounts in dollars to pay cocoa farmers so that we can get their cocoa and so on, the cocoa we produce simply goes to repay these huge loans that we take for cocoa purchases. Doesn't it make a lot more sense to find cedis to pay the cocoa farmers who depend on cedis, who will pay in cedis rather than borrow in dollars? But today, that is not possible because the means of raising cedis for cocoa purchases has been destroyed. All those who invested in government bonds and so on are having to take haircuts. Today, it is no longer secure to put your money in government bonds. Before, you could raise bonds in order to find the cedis to pay the cocoa farmer.
There's even a specific item called the cocoa bill.
Yeah. Today, that whole thing has been destroyed after 7.5 years of the MPP administration. Now, this is the problem. We were told that this economy could be developed, would actually be developed without recourse to loans. I'm not the one saying it. Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, he told us there's no need to borrow. He told us that he has worked at the Bank of Ghana before. He knows how much money is stuck in the Bank of Ghana, and that there's no need to borrow in order to develop. Today, his government has borrowed more than any other government in Ghanaian history. They borrow so much that when they are counting countries that are heavily indebted in Africa, we are amongst the first three. Senna, am I lying? He told us that there's no need to borrow. No, why are you borrowing? That borrowing is a mark of incompetence. Today, they have borrowed more than any and everybody in Ghana's history. They borrow so much that when you are looking for superstars in borrowing in Africa, they count among the superstars. And they say we should celebrate them. Celebrate them for what? For borrowing, which is bad? Unbelievable. And the worst thing is the kind of excuses they give for where we are today. And their number one excuse is the COVID pandemic. Listen to all of them. They can't say, oh, we were doing so well until COVID struck. True? Master, my witness is not very far. My witness is in Ghana here. My witness is a parliamentary candidate of the New Patriotic Party in the last elections in the Sanerigu constituency. That's my witness. This lady told us that she was giving part of the HIPIC funds.
COVID funds.
COVID funds, thank you, my brother. She told us that she was giving part of the COVID funds for her campaign. And that her constituency chairman and police station something were all giving some. What does that mean? They had so much money for COVID that they could actually spend some on electioneering campaigns. How then is COVID such a bad thing? Then COVID was very good for them. They had excess money, too much money, that they could actually spend some on electioneering campaigns. So how was COVID so bad? How is COVID then responsible for the quagmire that we find ourselves in? Somebody must explain. You see, my brother, we are in a very, very bad place. And I've read predictions which have been made by knowledgeable people with economic background and so on. There's this guy called Thompson, who has been speaking on the economy on a regular basis and so on, and others, who are saying that the next 10 years is going to be hellish for the people of Ghana. And it's on that basis that I say that the NPP will be so very lucky if they lose the elections. In fact, they believe in reciting Bible verses and singing hymns and so on. If they lose the elections, they should intensify the singing of hymns and reading of Bible verses. Because it will be such a huge blessing for them. Because the Armageddon that is coming is a huge Armageddon. And if they win the elections, they will be faced with the Armageddon. Because all of these measures will not resolve any of the crises that our people face. It can only deepen the crisis. The people I worry for, the people I'm concerned about, are those people who are likely to win the elections if the NPP should lose. They should prepare themselves. Because they are not walking into paradise. They are walking into the teeth of the storm. There's nothing. The country is broke. The country is bankrupt. And that is what they are likely to inherit. And they should not take this out of their heads. If they do, it's to their own detriment. And they should stop making lavish promises. They should stop making lavish promises. It is time to tell the people of Ghana the truth about where we are and the difficulties that lie ahead. Anything to the contrary will push them into the eye of the storm. Anything other than that will result in perhaps what is worse than the Kenyan situation. And you know why I say what is worse than the Kenyan situation? Because Kenya did not experience June 4, 1979, has not experienced that yet. Kenya has not experienced December 31st, 1981. You understand? We have experienced June 4, 1979. We have experienced 31st December, 1981. If something should happen again, with that background and experience, you can imagine what it will be like. We can imagine what it will be like. So me, I know. Sitting here, I know clearly, without doubt, that this neoliberal order will lead us only to more disaster. I'm clear in my mind that the problem which confronts us is the problem of capitalism. And I know that until the conditions are ripe for moving away from neoliberalism, for smashing the capitalist system, there's no remedy. So I am not going to rush for power when these conditions exist. My duty and the duty of all revolutionary progressive forces is to work for the maturation of the subjective and objective factors for revolution and to carry out revolution in this country. So, I'm not rushing for power. But those who do not recognize this and believe that within the neoliberal framework, under the ambit of capitalism, they can effect changes, that is their headache. Let them go ahead. Let them struggle for power. But at least let them be honest with us. Because if they are not honest with us, if they are going to tell us that they can bring inflation down in 1 year, if they are going to tell us that they can arrest the dollar or the cedi and give the keys to the IGP and so on, they should go ahead and make those statements. We will hold them to their words. If they come and they don't arrest the cedi and give the key to the IGP, they are in trouble. You understand? If they tell us today that you can develop without borrowing and they come and they borrow and we get into this bankrupt situation again, they are in trouble. So let them watch out. But finally, Senna, there is nothing to celebrate. There is everything to mourn over the current situation and nothing to celebrate.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And we started on that note, and Korokwesi Brothers concluded on the same note, because, of course, Dr. Tony Edu was the very first person to speak to this topic, and he was also of the opinion that the capitalist path is not the path for us. I always say when you want to, the capitalist path is when somebody tell you that government has no business doing any business. That government's job is to create an enabling environment for the private sector. Then they will do trickle down economics. So,
you have brought up a very important issue. And check our history. Could you check our history? All those who come to us telling us that the private sector is the engine of growth and that government has no business doing business and so on. What happens to them when we give them power? They all with alacrity run into the state sector and grab it. They don't stay in the private sector. Check the records. They tell you that the private sector is the engine of the group, but they don't like the private sector. They don't stay there. They run to the state sector and hijack it. Open your eyes.
Well, let me go through a couple of comments before we move on to the next discussion, because if there's anybody who is in the eye of the storm currently, it's William Ruto, who is president of Kenya. In the eye of the storm, promises made, promises broken, the youth want him out. Amas Mogobo in offense says President Mahama can now sleep and never campaign again. He's the president of Ghana already. I bet everybody for 2025. Napo and Baumia failed Ghanaians totally. They have no message. If they should change Ghana now, both are part of the failure story of Ghana. Now, that's Abbas's comments. Some more messages, comments on the discussion we're having. This Edie Gideon says, my sense is warm regards to my able panelists, especially Honorable Abdallah Buba, the soon to become MP for Wale constituency. With the MPP, anything goes. Any feeble thinking person can be overhyped, repackaged, and be presented as good because they lack almost everything moral, credibility, and has miscarriage of common sense. It is a high time every Ghanaian, we all wake up and speak truth to power to salvage and reset Ghana for a total independence from the bondage and shackles of nation records with impunity. Thank you, Edie, for that message. This one says the credibility and rationale behind Ghana's Eurobond debt restructuring raised significant concerns. It is essential to scrutinize the mismanagement by the Akufo-Addo and Bawumia administration, which nearly led to the collapse of our economy. Despite borrowing substantial amounts they used for consumption rather than capital investment that could have generated revenue to service the loans. This short-sighted approach has left the country grappling with unsustainable debt, necessitating the current restructuring efforts without addressing the root causes of this financial mismanagement. We risk repeating the same mistakes. Musa Abatwa sent that. Thank you for that message. There's a Jonas who says, Senna, Kenya is burning. Tanzania has followed suit today. Which country is next? Jonas sent that message. Positive Change in Medina says this Nana Bawumia government has done nothing good to us than causing us pain and hardship. We are miserable today than ever before because of mismanagement and corruption and recklessness. I hope we have learned our lessons for voting for this hopeless government. We move on to the discussion on Kenya and what is happening there and the lessons to be learned. And I start with Honorable Abuba again on this issue. And because of time, you have 10 minutes to share your comments with.
Senator, thank you so very much. And then permit me to slide a little bit and bring a conclusion to the conversation about the finance minister's statement. In preparing for these discussions, I came across the Bank of Ghana's data that talked about how our debt portfolio has been increasing over the period in 2024. So by the end of 2023, our debt portfolio then was 611 billion. 611 billion. And then January 2024, it increased to 626 billion. And then February 2024, within a period of 1 month, it increased from 726 to 658, a 46% increase. So this brings us to an irony that in the process of restructuring our debt portfolio is increasing. And this is the situation. And this is also a situation where, for the first time, and the increase in the debt portfolio is attributed to the CD dollar parities problem that we are faced. And this is happening at a time where, in the first time of this, the history of our country, the IGP had to be involved in managing the CD dollar parity rate, and yet we are experiencing it. So there's no hope, and the finance minister must learn to protect his integrity by not going the tangent that he's moving. Now back to Kenya. Some time back we were here discussing the coup d'etats that were springing up and the waves that were running across the West African sub-region. And the conversation brought to the fore the need for us to question the kind of governance system that we have. And the drive to democratize in Africa, the very Western nations, the world powers and all that are pushing African countries to deepen their democracies, are the very people who sit at the top of the global economic system, making it impossible for African leaders to be able to govern their people based on the aspirations of their people. And the question I ask myself, looking at what has happened in Kenya, to the extent that when the agitations and the demonstrations started, African governors are so impervious to the feelings of their people, so insensitive, that when we begin to agitate and demonstrate for them to hear our plea and to understand our situation in order to adjust things to better our lives, that is when they feel that it is important to marshal all the forces of coercion given them by the people through the military and the police to silence us with force. And then the Kenyans showed us an example that when it comes to people's power, those who hold the power must be very careful. When the agitation started, the president refused to listen and they were using the police to brutalize and killing individuals. And when push came to shove, they defiled parliament and went into parliament to destroy in order for the president to hear their issues. Parliament, why are we where we are today? Parliament, which happens to be the incubator of the aspirations of the people who have their elected representatives seated there, who are supposed to be the advocate of the aspirations and the wishes of the people of Kenya, were those who pass that bill with alacrity into law despite the agitations of the people they represent. This is complete failure of democratic principles. That parliament that should have been the one that speaks the voice of the people with speed decided to pass a bill that was being agitated against. And I question myself to find out to what extent were the people in parliament truly representative of the people of Kenya. And then they decided to ignore the people, and the people took the sovereignty back because they gave you the power to act in a social contract to better their lives. So those of us who are involved in politics should begin to realize that when we are given power, and the situation of Ghana is a perfect example of such a bad situation, that agitations, particularly in the case of the e-levy when it was being passed in Ghana, there were demonstrations and agitations, and yet the people ignored our sensitivities and decided to pass them and went ahead with it. Simply means we are practicing democracies and yet the governance processes do not carry the people's aspirations along. Another important factor that we have to consider when it comes to the situation of Kenya is to talk about the situation where the IMF at any point in time will force African countries like Kenya to adopt top-down decision-making processes. Top-down decision-making process because, just as said by senior comrade, Kosi Pratt, that we have politicians who will come to our doorsteps 24/7, campaign and share campaign promises that resonate with our dreams, and when they are voted into power, they lose the authority to decide what the national policy direction should be. And all that we have to do is to have the IMF sitting in the boardroom determining what should be our national priorities for us. And that explains why the situation in Kenya is the way it is. Because the agitations is a consequence of Kenya's struggle to be able to meet IMF's conditionalities to be able to secure a loan from the IMF. And the tax bill that they are agitating against decided to take away incentives, decided to increase taxes to the extent that the poor man's way of living was now being affected. Bread tax was going to affect prices of bread. The taxes was going to affect oil. So government that is supposed to even pay attention to the essential needs of the people of Kenya in order to better their livelihoods were now also being taxed. And the agitations have pointed to us that those of us in governance must not lose sight that we may be in position of authority, but we may not be the absolute repository of power, because power resides in the people. And the Kenyans have given the youth of Kenya have given African youth an example. The situation, as mentioned earlier, in Ghana is worse than what is happening in Kenya. We have government officials that are putting austerity measures in place, daily increasing the economic hardship people go through, and yet there is palpable corruption all over the place, to the extent that you realize that people who have not worked in any department or any agency whatsoever are lavishly showing opulence and flaunting opulence in the sight of Ghanaians. And this is what annoys the youth. And I believe that in the situation of Kenya, the youth of Kenya are well aware that despite the difficulty they go through, people in political authority or political positions are flaunting opulence in their face day in, day out. And this issue of corruption is fueling the people's anger. And Ghana must watch our situation. What is so annoying is the fact that a president who campaigned and told the people of Kenya he was going to flip the story of Kenya and to rewrite the story of Kenya because he was a commoner like them and he identifies and associates with them. He is the very person who decided to become very insensitive to the plight of the people, to the extent that they had to take over the authority. Only for him. Initially, he was so impervious to the agitations of the people. But in the end, when people's power was shown, he had to quickly listen to them. And that has been put, the bill has been put aside. He has refused to sign. But of course, it has kind of given the people an indication that they've chosen a good path and they should continue the agitations. So Kenya gives a good example to African leaders, particularly Nana Addo and his people, that look, people's power is there, and if they fail to listen to agitations in a good way, they will take it by force. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Just one message, then I'll come to Mr. Kujochumboa for his thoughts on this issue, the Kenyan issue in particular. This is Tafai Namraya who says, Senator, this morning, I want to salute the youth of Kenya. All the youth across Africa need to learn from Kenyan youth. They have shown the way how to treat their leadership and lessons. Senator, please, let's use the opportunity to wish my brother Abuba well this time around. Inshallah, is going to take that seat from Baumia. The feedback I'm getting from Wale Wale shows a massive victory for him. Therefore, I would like to appeal to the leadership of my party to pay serious attention to Wale Wale said, because Rambo Abuba has done a lot. He needs all of us. Mr. Kojichumbrafo.
Kenya. You see, my senior brother Chrissy and Honorable Abuba spoke about those who benefit from the problems they create for us, right? We have had an education of the Lord Lugard's prophecy, and I happen to be in a house that was named after him, the Nachmota School, so I have read a little bit about him, a very unpleasant character. But as unpleasant as he was, he sort of figured out who we were to an extent, or to a large extent, and what we were prepared to do to undermine our own progress. You see, I want to dovetail this Kenyan problem into what we politicians tell the populace before they give us power, and what we do moments after we get power. Remember, Ruto told them that he was one of them. He's not part of the elite, system that the privileged children of the Kenyatas, and that was one of his the things. And remember, his president then warned the Kenyan people not to give him power, because he knew him more than all of them did. So sometimes when people who know people warn you that don't give somebody they know power because we know him, you should listen. Dr. Nyao Tabakuro told us, don't give a Kufuor power because I know him. We see Pratt warned us about Nanado copiously. I told you people about Nanado. Did I tell you? What is it that I told you that hasn't come true? I told you they were brigands and buccaneers. Did I not tell you that? I told you that they were going to come and steal every little thing they could lay their hands on. Because you see, for them, it is an entitlement mentality. It's the same thing that's happening in Kenya. The only language they will understand is when the people of Ghana stand up and say enough. You see, when we spoke about the people who benefited from putting us where they put us, the finance minister's brokerage company brokered the debt that we owe today. In his own words, he told us in Parliament, after pressure from the minority, that he made 159 million cedis. At the time, the cedi was not 15 cedis. That is the reason why, when he falls sick, he is able to fly to Mayo Clinic, the most expensive hospital in the world, to get treatment. And you and I given the same illness, will go to a hospital without doctors and die. Then when he comes back, you see, all that I'm saying, I'm quoting them and their very words. He comes back and he says that he didn't know that hospital treatment elsewhere was so good. Otherwise, he would have advocated for better treatment in Ghana. Didn't he say that when he came back from his illness? Didn't he say that? That he didn't know. Listen carefully. He didn't know that hospital treatment outside the country was so bad as they would have done better in Ghana. Really? Really? And now when you ask the president to fire him, you know what the president tells you? When I was campaigning and I was looking for money, he was the one who found money for me, so I can't sack him. Because of that, we got COVID in Ghana, and we are paying taxes for getting COVID. We are the only country in the world that is paying taxes because we got COVID. It is the very system that Lord Lugard spoke about. What we do to each other. After William Ruto promising every Kenyan that he was an ordinary person just like them, he brought extraordinary taxes for them that they couldn't pay. In this country today, go to the supermarket, go to a restaurant to eat. When your receipt is printed, look at it. See how many taxes you are paying. Where does the tax go? What do they do with it? Our education system has failed. Our banking system has failed. Our health system has failed. Our pension system has failed. Our discipline as a populace is utterly short. Because what we do in this country is that if there are bad roads in our area, the government officials who are in the area, they don't fix the road, they go and buy land cruisers. That's what they do. So the indiscipline that is within our system has fomented. So how are you going to get any economic growth in a country where nobody wants to be disciplined? Senna, we spent $250 million hosting All Africa Games. Last weekend, there was a news item that the Boteman Sports Complex is now a church. Did you people see it? Did you see it? All the things that are able to generate, or all the industries, erstwhile industries, that were able to generate income, give people work to do, directly and indirectly. Today they are all churches. Domalong is a church. Blackwood Hodge is a church. Everywhere, classrooms are now churches. You know why? Because we are being made to understand that the only salvation that we will get as a human, as a populace, is to wrap our sorrows in religion. So, a 30-day-old sports complex, instead of maintaining it, it's now a church. So give it 2 years, all the seats will be missing. That is how we choose to govern ourselves. You saw human excreta being poured on a football pitch in Tamale, ostensibly to fertilize it. We saw it. Now, when football is about to be played, the pitch is actually sprayed green. Instead of going the grass, we spray the pitch. It epitomizes who we are. From where I come from in the Kopo, we call it Imprim Kasa. The now, the here and the now. Instead of growing the grass, the last time the Black Stars played, remember what Joy FM, the news Joy FM did? We were spraying the grass. Elsewhere, they grow the grass. See the difference? We buy the spray from them, then we spray our grass. Then they grow the grass. In countries where they don't have sunshine, they grow the grass. In countries where they don't have enough sunshine, they utilize solar system. In Germany, 65% of power generation is solar. In Ghana, if you import solar panels, you will pay about 300% the cost in taxes alone to GRA, who will promptly give it to SML, a slush fund by Kenufuriata and the president. This is who we are. If we don't change, and the change must be enforceable by the mass action of the will of the people. That is what William Ruto has seen. After killing 23 people, now he has submitted to the people's will. And the people are saying it's not enough, you need to go. And he will kill enough until they get to him. That is the story of the African president, the African leader. When they come to you and tell you, say, Sidinaya, hata, watch them. When they come to you and tell you, watch them carefully. When they come to you and they tell you, they're lying. Because in which country does a finance minister broker the loans that the country collects and it is okay? Sana, as we speak, do you remember the train that came and had an accident moments after I got here? The insurance for that train, the premium insurance for that train was collected by the Loferatas Company Enterprise Insurance. And now they are not paying it. Now that the train has crashed, they are not paying for the repairs of the train. I mean, what country is this? What country is this? The former finance minister, when he was finance minister, his insurance company collects premiums that are due to the state insurance company, and we keep quiet about it. When Akufo-Addo became president, in his inauguration speech, he said that if you want to make money, go to the private sector. Am I lying? But his agric minister today is buying state hotels. And Akufo-Addo has justified it. So what happened to, if Brian Achampa wants to make money, why is he a minister of state and buying state hotels? Senna, in 2016, I know you want me to finish, but this must be said. In 2016, if Fifikwete, the then agric minister, had been buying state hotels, what will Gifty Afenia does he have prayed at the Independence Square? Even when she hadn't seen anything, she said there were devils running this country. So if Fifikwete was buying state hotels, what would my butterfly friend have said then? Because at that time he was with them. You see, we are getting to a point where the citizenry of this country must say it's enough. And I'm not talking just about polls, waiting for polls, because by the time that time comes, They would have done more than enough, as if they haven't done enough damage already. The train that we imported, we have spent almost $500 million on that railway. Right? The rolling stock that was brought into this country by a company called PESA was insured by Enterprise Insurance. Train number PIM, they are not paying. And we are quiet. Kifta Fenyidazi is quiet. The Moral Society are quiet. Reverend Otabil is quiet. My former moderator is quiet. The current moderator is quiet. The Catholic Bishops Conference are quiet. Methodist Conference, they are quiet. Why are all of you quiet? Train now the people who insured it is Kenoforiata and Enterprise Insurance. Ask them to pay. Because if it was Fiscal Insurance Company, if indeed he had an insurance company, or it was Enterprise Insurance Company, and they had insured that rolling stock, you people would have gone to church to pray that the devil should pay the insurance premium. Okay. You too tell them to pay.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Kojochumbuafo. Let me do a couple more messages. Kofi from Ponzi, Uncle Pakwesi, you always have impact. There's Africa Our Home says, I'll vote for anyone who has plans of weakening our so-called multi-party capitalist democracy. Everything is about party interest. There's Robert Talamte, who says, those are all MPP slogans. We have not heard such from JDM. Bernard Semenu points out that Kenya had experienced civil war before. There's also AB who says this is so much of the truth Ghanaians cannot listen to. This fact, but you are 100% right. There's this one says JDM is aware of the battle ahead. Robert Alamti again. She continues to say it's definitely not going to be easy. There's an acquisition that says Sam Jonah is part of the problem in the mining industry. Didn't he help sell the golden share? There is Philip Tabi who says, under Mahama there shall be okay. This one is interesting. There's also Nana Kosia who says, Mr. Pratt, please stand for election so we vote for you to be our president. In fact, he's responded to that in his for the first time. I think he's commented on that. He says he's not interested in power. There's Nana Kosia again says, who is asking what Mr. Pratt's solution is. There's Farouk Rasak who said, Dr. Bawumia has suddenly been reduced to a puppet boy. What a houseboy president he will be. So those are some of the comments you're sharing with us on YouTube, those of you who are watching us on YouTube. So
it's very interesting. Let me say that what is happening in Kenya is a microcosm of the African problem. It is not only synonymous to the people of Kenya, it's across board. Every country in Africa is facing high unemployment, particularly among the youth, underdevelopment, and so on and so forth. So you cannot deal with the Kenyan situation without recourse to the totality of Africa. And that is why I see the African Union as a very disappointing institution, because we all have similar problems. And so it is the reason why Africa has to come together. So we develop African solutions to African problems. As it is now, we are dealing with African problems with solutions professed by these Bretton Woods institutions, IMF, World Bank, and so on and so forth. And you see, the youth of Kenya, I am very disappointed that they saw Ruto at such a late hour. Because come to think of it, Ruto was voted for by these same people who are complaining now. What sort of analysis did they do on Ruto? What sort of critical thinking went into the analysis of the promises that he was given? Here was someone in 2022 going around promising the people that he was one of them. He was a hustler. How could someone who was the vice president convince you that he was a hustler. And at the time of making that promise, he owned and continues to own a lot of hotels, estates, insurance companies in Kenya. And he was telling you that he was a hustler like you. And you believed him and voted for him. So I would not sympathize with you on that score. Ruto behaved like a typical African politician. Not just a typical African, but now it has extended around the entire world. That politicians see voters as gullible minds, just prepare something sweet and give it to them. They will just all follow. And let me reduce the Kenyan situation, because all the indicators, economic indicators prevailing in Kenya are better than what is happening in Ghana. So what it means is that Ghanaians should have been on the street way ahead of Kenyans. If you look at their unemployment situation, Kenya is dealing with about 6.6%. We are dealing with an unemployment situation of 14.74%. Their currency is doing better than we are doing. In terms of infrastructure, Kenya is way miles ahead of Ghana. But the people of Kenya are beginning now, is awakening cause. But you see, let the older generation understand that there are generational differences. If you look at the age of Ruto and his likes, they are the baby boomers. Their thinking is different from the millennials. And in the same way, the thinking of the millennials is different from the, what we call the Gen Z generation. So if you take a critical look at this demonstration, it's a demonstration being led by the Gen Z. As for them, everything has to be done fast. They don't have time for your nonsense. You said when you come, you will be good, you will be better off. They expect that to happen. But you see, the 27 or so people, young generation, the young ones that have died in the course of this demonstration, it will come to a knot if Ruto is not kicked out of office. But what I heard him say gives that credence to the young ones to make sure that he's not in office, that Kenyans have won. Oh, so before you brought that finance bill, you did not engage the people of Kenya to know their mindset on it? Clearly, there is a disconnect between politicians who are just preying on the innocent souls and blood of these people and the real actors of the economy. Indeed, if he was mindful, if he was in constant touch with the people, he would realize that the Kenyans were not in for this killing bill. Ruto has told us that he is a Christian and he believes in that the only prayer, our Father who art in heaven. In that prayer, he says, give us our daily bread. Ruto wants to take their bread, daily bread. You want to impose 16% on bread. How on it? And 25% on cooking oil. This is wickedness. But why wouldn't he behave like that? When Ruto won his election, who was the first leader to meet him after his inauguration? It was our own Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. He went and told her, we succeeded with this e-levy. So you too, you can go ahead and impose anything. But you see, you reduce it to a Ghana situation. And this is where I want to speak to the minds, the souls of the youth of this country. That, you see, it has gotten to a time that we need to analyze carefully whatever message any politician. Don't just reduce it to the flag bearers of the various political parties or movements, but also extend it to the parliamentarians. This finance bill we are talking about, was it not approved by the Kenyan parliament? 349 members of parliament in the Kenyan parliament decided to okay this bill. These members of parliament, together with the women group from the counties and the 12 representatives, are supposed to be representing the people, the various constituencies. They are supposed to go to parliament with the views and opinions of their members in the various constituencies. How often do they engage the constituencies? I have been saying it. I am in the Okakwe South constituency. I don't remember the last time my MP engaged any of the constituents. So on that score, the very decisions she takes on behalf of the people of Okakwe South is based on what evidence? She is there doing anything anyhow. Whatever pleases her, she thinks that the whole or the entire constituents are in favor of it. We don't respect the constituents. We only respect them when it's getting to elections. Now it's elections, we are getting closer to elections, we see people crisscrossing. We need to analyze any message. In any case, the various manifestos that they are churning out, is it evidence-based? Is it backed by any plan? And this is where I want to admonish all Ghanaians that in 2024, you don't have to go with the various manifestos, not backed by any evidence, to go and vote for any of these candidates, be it Dr. Baumia or John Mahama. It has to be based by an empirical evidence that whatever they are saying is achievable. And here I market to you the Great Transformational Plan. It's a plan. Alan is telling you that, look, the problem of Africa has to do with the fact that we are over borrowing without looking at our circumstance. I heard a young Kenyan say that they don't see the problem in Kenya as coming from the revenue side. The problem confronting Kenya is coming from the expenditure side. And that if Ruto is mindful and wants to deal with the problems in Kenya, he must look at tackling corruption. Ghana, are we not corrupt? So, you focus on things that will grow the economy. Alan is telling you that I want to focus on agriculture. But when the people are fed, there will not be this trouble. How is it that, like Comrade Pratt was saying, that as a country, every year, we go and do syndicated loan of $1.2 billion to come and buy cocoa. Do we use dollar to buy cocoa? Is it not cedis? In the Great Transformational Plan, Alan is telling you that that will be a thing of the past, and that we will use cities to buy our cocoa. Under no circumstance would he go and borrow dollars to come and buy our cocoa, and that he will use the state to float bonds to buy our cocoa. These are pragmatic solutions that people, the Ghanaian that is going to vote, should listen. And then treat all of you to get a copy of the Great Transformation Plan so that you do not make the mistake that Kenyans have made, that they are having to pay back with their blood. Look, if anybody is telling you that life is going to be rosy after 2025, then that person is lying to you. They are already in IMF. We have only deferred the payments that we are supposed to make today to a future date. Even when we have not started paying our debt, the dollar to the cedi is now in the region of 16 cedis. Can you imagine we starting to pay our foreign debt or our creditors, where the dollar to the cedi will be? Especially where we are a country that depends solely on imports. So we are going to have to deal with a high rate of inflation, which will worsen our situation. Therefore, you would need a leader in 2025 who has that plan to guide governance. Ruto has shown that he only made the promises without having a plan. Okay. And therefore, it is for us as Ghanaians to learn the hard way from this, or learn from what is happening in Kenya, and know that it's not all that leaders, not all that politicians say that they believe in. They only say it to woo you. And the last bit of it that must guide us is that the Kenyan national security did not see this coming. What happened? They just used their social media. And what makes this one very dangerous is that there are no leaders in this demonstration. The government wished that they knew the leaders so that they could go and bribe them. This was the main reason why Fix the Country movement never succeeded. When Ghanaians were ready to go on the street, hit the street, to put this government on this right, so we had leaders with this Fix the Country movement, Fix the Country movement. At the end of the day, what did they do? They just mortgaged the country. they went in some sort of agreement with this government, and all of a sudden the Fix the Country movement fizzled. The Ghanaian that wanted to put this government on its toes fizzled out, decided not to even follow it again, because as usual, the entrepreneurs entered into the fray. I want to admonish the youth of this country that if you are going to allow these people who have no clue, and you are also going to listen to lofty promises to vote, you will continue to be in your poverty situation. If you want to deal with poverty and deal with it, then look up to a candidate that has given you the plan. Read the plan. Localize the plan to your situation to see whether it will solve your problems, and vote for that person, because hunger does not know any political color. After 32 years of NDC, MPP, the value is the same. Okay. And that it is only a candidate with that plan, in the person of Alan John Kojo Tremantin, who has given you his plan way ahead of time, that these two political parties going around and having been in government before are yet to give you a plan. Then the last time I heard, they said they have formed manifesto committees. So you don't have plan. You are not coming to analyze the Ghanaian situation, to go and sit down and then write something, put something on paper.
Mr. Osu, thank you.
We cannot, Senator. It's a very serious situation that people must not vote on party lines in this country. Okay. They must vote based on issues, the plan that the person has given you.
Mr. Solomon Owusu is a member of the Movement for Change Alliance for Revolutionary Change. This is Ambassador Sampiale. Says President Ruto's strategy is what Bawumia is adopting. 1. Show extreme humility. 2. Mixed outward religious manifestation. And 3. Undermine the policies of his president and claim that he has his own vision, and now see what has happened. That's coming from you. Thank you very much for that message, Ambassador. There's Tia Musa who says, COVID been responsible for the state of our economy. COVID started in China, where they ran out of firewood for burning dead bodies. Ghana, who recorded few deaths to COVID, is pleading with China to forgive them their debts. The finance minister should be careful with his comments on the economy. He should learn from Dr. Bawumia, the vice president, and his past comments. And of course, okay, this Nana says, Nana call for a demonstration of the youth who will only see the NDC, while the MPP youth to be castigating and throwing. Okay, let me read this well. It says, call for a demonstration of the youth. You will only see the NDC, while the MPP youth will be castigating and throwing stones. Why? We are held captives by deep-seated partisan politicians.
You see why we need an independent candidate?
Alhaji Peter T says, with regards to your studio panel, Senator, as for the youth, we have to wake up from our slumber and tactically demonstrate our displeasure and protest as a signal to warn this Bawumia and Nado government, enough is enough. How much is a ball of kinky and banku today? We will do worse if we have the opportunity for any of our subsequent demonstration. We have been cheated for long and can no longer bear it. Again, enough is enough. Well, let's listen to Comrade Kwesi Prajini on this particular matter to conclude today's show. Mr. Pratt?
Well, I mean, there's nothing that the Kenyan government has done which the Ghanaian government has not done 3 times over. I mean, they are protesting against e-levy. It was introduced by this government. They are protesting against increases in fuel prices. We have done it here more than they have. They are talking about taxation on imports. We've done more than they have done. So if you look at their grievances, we are certainly, the Ghanaian government is certainly way ahead of the Ruto government. Now, the other thing which is important is that the impression is created, and many wrong impressions are created, but the impression is created that the youth of Kenya are demonstrating over increases in taxes. It's not true. They are demonstrating against the IMF package, the whole package. They are demonstrating against neoliberalism. They are demonstrating against the hijacking of the national economy for the benefit of the metropolitan countries and so on. It's an anti-neoliberal demonstration. It's not just against taxes and so on. It's not true. The other problem is that it started from the Western media and now it's spreading. All of us are repeating it, that it is the youth of Kenya who are demonstrating. It is not true. It is the people of Kenya who are demonstrating against bad governance. Young people are involved, older people are involved. See the videos of the demonstrations. You understand? In any case, if you look at the demographics of Kenya, 70% of the Kenyan population is under 25 years of age. So what is this thing about youth and youth? It is meant to devalue the force on the street. The force on the street is the people of Kenya who are demonstrating against what is happening. As for Ruto, I think the least said about him, the better. You know, I mean, how did we get here? The point where these are the leaders who have been inflicted on Africa. Look all over the African continent. See the kind of leaders we have. Compare them to the leaders of the national liberation movements. Look at the type of leaders we have in Africa today. It's so sad. After killing 60 people, killing 60 people, and injuring over 1,000, he now turns around and says, oh, well, I've agreed to your grievances. Everybody go back home. Let things stay as they are. They would not go back home. They won't stay as they are. In fact, new demands have emerged. And one of the new demands is to fish out those who gave the orders for the killing and to hold them accountable for the killing of the Kenyan people. That's a new demand. You understand? It happens all the time. People go to the streets, they demonstrate, the leaders can say, we have accepted what you are saying. And then they find other means of doing the same things all over again, and so on. The Kenyan people would not buy that. And I'm not surprised that the protest is continuing in Kenya. And it's actually spreading throughout East Africa. It will spread throughout East Africa. You understand? Now listen, the people of Africa are simply tired with these new colonial arrangements. The people of Africa want to own their own resources and to exploit those resources for their own benefit. The people of Africa want all foreign military bases closed down on the continent. The people of Africa want to tear down the boundaries, these boundaries which was created in 1884 in Bonn. They want to tear them down and so on. The people of Africa are waking up. There's a new patriotic revolution spreading across Africa. It has happened in Burkina Faso, happened in Niger, it has happened in Mali. It is spreading. No force can stop the patriotic revolution that is building across the African continent. And the people of Africa would eventually become masters of their own destiny. The people of Africa want to build a new Africa in which its people will have access to social services, better quality education, better quality health care, access to decent housing, and so on. The people of Africa want to build that new Africa in which no child will go to bed on an empty stomach. They want to build an Africa in which people do not die of curable diseases. They want to build an Africa in which its people are masters of their own destiny. And no force can stop that from happening.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is Kojo Chumbuafo after he says, Senna, please remind the listeners that when they collect their syndicated cocoa loans, they actually intentionally cause the cedi to depreciate so that they can get more cedis at the depreciated exchange rates to pay the cocoa farmers. So long term, our economy suffers more inflation. That's Kojo Chumbuafo. There's this one from Godwin Okaiko Center. Senna, please tell the youth and the people of Ghana to start getting ready for the Destiny March. Destiny March, he says. I would like to say, let me just remind you, you're from Pan-African Television. So Marcus' story with Mamia Mautu has been on quite some break. Is returning with a bang.
Note of caution.
Okay.
You see, there have been various attempts at mass mobilization in Ghana and so on. They have all failed. And they have failed for good reason. As soon as signs of maturation of the anger of the people emerge, people want to jump ahead, to take advantage of it, to profit from it personally, and so on. And they demobilize the population. You understand? Yes, there are signs that people are getting angry and so on. That anger needs to be properly nurtured. You understand? You need to build a formidable organization, carefully build a formidable organization and so on. Don't rush and jump ahead. And anytime there's a demonstration, you see a few people clamoring to be in front and so on. Those people, yes, to some extent they are entrepreneurs, but they are more than that. They are charlatans. If you genuinely care about mass mobilization, about the people achieving the objectives and so on, take yourself out of it. When I say take yourself out of it, I'm not saying that don't demonstrate. Your own petty ambitions should not be the driver. Your own petty personal ambitions should not be the driver. You don't wake up one morning out of a dream and declare a revolution and expect that everybody is going to follow you and so on. It's painstaking work. It's mobilization, getting different segments of the society together and so on. And most of the times, those successful upheavals are not led or do not appear to have been led by the initiators. Look, today everybody thinks that Professor Albert Eduboahene formed the Movement for Freedom and Justice. It's not true. The Movement for Freedom and Justice, the initiative came from the house of Sonny Provincial. Accra Central, that is where the initiative came from. The people who initiated it included people like Professor Kwame Kakari, Akoto Ampao, Owusu Jima, Kwame Rafi and others. Who knows them? Nobody knows them. They didn't do it for their benefit. They deliberately recruited Professor Eduboahene because of some considerations and so on. You understand what I'm saying? Today, everybody thinks that Kumi Preku is Nana Addo Dankwa, Akufo-Addo and so on. It is not wholly true. Of course, the idea came from a birthday organized for him by Ni Ejiri Blankson. It was at that birthday that the discussions began. Ni Ejiri Blankson, who even associates him with the success of the Kumi Preku demonstration. Akoto Ampao and Weku Brobe were the chief architects when it came to writing statements and organizing press conferences and so on. Nobody remembers them. You understand? So this is about jumping in front and so on. If it's about your ambition, why do you want to involve me in it? If it's about your personal ambition, if you want to be seen as the Tarzan, you know, of the Ghanaian struggle, why do you want to involve me in it? So Kenya has happened. Is truly providing a lot of excitement and so on. It can help in the mobilization effort and so on. But it is not about the individual ambitions of individuals and charlatans. All of a sudden, you see them like Tarzans and so on.
After a short break, market story has started airing and promises to be better. That's coming from says you watch out for something fantastic. The market story, and I've seen the trailer, and it looks like they're talking about tomatoes. One of the things that have at least taken the public attention, the cost of tomatoes, and what are the factors influencing that. So do make a day market story today at 5:30 p.m. 5:30 p.m. today, 5:30 p.m. on Pan African Television, and then there will be a repeat on Thursday at 11:30 a.m. The market story is the voice of our market queen, so do make a date with it. And also, let me say a big thank you to our affiliate radio stations across the country. To Shine FM that catch you on 96.9. I'm sure if you're listening to us on 91.7, once again, you will get 97.1. There's Diamond FM in Tamale on 93.7. There's Bewa Radio in Yendi on 106.5. Radio Kitan Saboba on 95.7. Benya FM Elmina 105.7. Global FM 105.1. Nimbo Volta 1 TV. There's Zebs FM 95.9 in Zebila. True FM 92.5 in Addis. Lama FM or 89.1 in Tripoli. 88.7 FM in Jessica. Lukusi 96.1 in Belgrade Kwati. Tyne FM is on 90.9. Sekwala FM 104.3 at Mini Radio in Pando. Thanks to all those radio stations for picking us live. We're very grateful to you. And let me also say happy birthday. Let me also say a happy birthday to Bolo Amos. Bolo Amos. Well, once again, I think I should do the acknowledgement again because it's very, very important. They carry us every Saturday. Shine FM in Ankachi on 96.9, Hills FM and 91.7, University Radio Ketakrati 89.7, Stella Radio in Dabala on 97.1, Diamond FM in Tamale on 93.7, Dora Radio in India 106.5, Radio Kitan Sabuba 95.7, Kenya FM Elmina 105.7, Global FM in Ho 105.1. The Zebs FM 95.9 in Zebila, True FM 92.5 in Adesso. There's Lamara FM 89.1 in Tripoli, whereas 88.7 FM in Jessica. Lukusi 96.1 in Belgrade Kwati. There's Tyne FM 90.9, Sekwala FM 104.3, Aquini Radio in Pando. Thank you to all those radio stations. Like I announced earlier, Market Story is back after a short break, and today, when we air, of course, you'll be interested why a tomato is so expensive. 5:30 p.m. Make a day with Market Story. And let me say a happy birthday to Bolo Amos. Bolo Amos was the assembly member for the area in Mepe when the flood happened. And we had an extensive discussion with him during that time. So he's become a friend subsequently. So a happy birthday to the assembly member for Mepe. And happy birthday to you, Bolo. Well, I am Sena Nowhere. Big thank you to Comrade Kwesi Pratt, who is General Secretary of the Socialist Movement of Ghana. To those of you who ask for a solution, he is now dedicating his time to promoting socialism as the best form of government, the only way through which we can attain as a people, the Ghanaian people can attain, the African people, not only Ghana, the African people can attain whatever aims and objectives we set out for ourselves. And the path we have been on all this while is the wrong path. And of course, if you listen to Dr. Todiedu at the beginning of the show, he also emphasized that if we continue on this path, we're going nowhere. And of course, a big thank you to Honorable Abubakar Abdallah, who is NEC parliamentary candidate for Wale Wale. And then sitting right to my right is Mr. Solomon Owusu, who is a member of the Alliance for Revolutionary Change Movement for Change. And of course, we had Kojo Chum Boafo, Engineer Chum Boafo, number 2, who was a former executive secretary of the Ghana Free Zones Board. We are back same time next week in another edition of the show. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and a fruitful week.
No, says I feel a Viana boy, ama entos na say. Eti akuya for the end ye no obobo and amo enwura amo gira 50 million, 55 million. Eti yes your kotoba ye ntimi nton. Amo na nya odi ba amo adaka 70 million, 65 boni be yan to me tom. Nkrofo ni beto wa ye boa. No mu beto no mu si mutrimu odin papa. Mutrimu odi anya ye mabato amo 65 70 million me boa ni say. No boa din do na ka mi say ye nya ba ko. Na ko demonstration na ye ko strike.
Ka na wo yi. 250 million. Or the bar, not the besiwa. If you only 10 bucks, not the bar, that's kind of big. And then, friend, who say on
wo so ye kitua bi na om maako 7 mitua 90 million mo bed basis maako say 7 90 million seed no agriki fo ye nya bi to omo dia man kofo nkurase enti efrinkra akoto wadan kura bi ase enti aye
mititi bi una ka say ye ton toast 70 million 60 million 80 million mitibi kama just enti muso mu ni mu de ekoso wo krom eye say omo bra no mo be won say de na mo ye challenge no mo nye maye.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer. He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer.
Truly African.